morning. My name is Patrick Maillot. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Initio. We are specialists in hydrogen fuel cells and derivatives since 2006. We're based out of Brussels in Belgium. I will say a few words about our firm, but I'm really delighted to have a few of you here. And I think if you're here, the good news is that I'm sure you are super motivated. So it's better to be a few of you, but super interested. If you want to get close by, so we have kind of a VIP session. It's great. And to the organizers, if you want, you can leave me the keys and I will switch off the light before we go. So good evening, everyone. And we're going to have a great panel in the next 40 minutes. And I promise to stick to 40 minutes with 4 great experts in aviation, and more than aviation, decarbonizing aviation. Let's maybe, to wake you up a little bit, ask you, how many of you did come to Marrakesh flying? So you guys walked? Okay, good. Now, how many of you think they're going to be flying again in 2030 to Marrakesh? And how many of you think they're going to be flying again to Marrakesh in 2050? My message is aviation is there to last, and that's good news for you, Julien, at Airbus. It's there to start, but because of demographics, because of habits, this is going to last and this is going to intensify. And we have to diligently find solutions to address the carbon challenge ahead. I'll say a few words about Initio, and then we're going to present the speakers. Actually, they're going to present themselves for the sake of time. This one here. Good. So we are a strategy consulting boutique expert in hydrogen and derivatives. We delivered more than 700 projects in 35 countries since 2006. We are headquartered in Brussels. We have offices in Europe, in Rotterdam, Paris, in Latin America, Santiago de Chile, Bogota, and in the East Coast of the US. And essentially what we do is support investment decisions in this space and help avoid a number of mistakes we have observed. So let me give you a few words of introduction to set the scene. Can you hear me here? No. Hello, hello? No. Can you switch on this one, please? Hello, hello? Wake up. Hello. Oops, sorry. So, as we were saying earlier, aviation today is a huge business. It's $900 billion more or less year on year as a business. It's around 11 million jobs, direct jobs. It's about 4.5 billion people being moved from point A to point B on the planet. Pre-COVID, we are not yet there post-COVID. But with that, it embeds a growth rate of about 4% over the last decade in terms of polluting emissions. And today it's responsible for a little bit more than 2% of greenhouse gas emissions, at least in 2019 before COVID. And emissions are expected to actually skyrocket in some regions, particularly in Asia Pacific. And that has to do with economic growth, demographic growth, tourism, business development, and so on. So not only the problem or the challenge is here, but it's going to exacerbate. Now, the good news is that when it comes to renewable fuels and ESAF, as we're going to call it, countries with high renewable energy potential have a huge competitive advantage. As we'll see, sustainable aviation fuels have some characteristics which make them, compatible with conventional jet fuels and embed a real and serious environmental competitive advantage with up to 80–85% emission reduction potential in the best case. Yeah. What we see, and I think there's convergence here, and nobody here in this panel is going to say something opposite, is that SAF is going to be there whatever decarbonization scenario you look at for aviation. And achieving net zero by 2050 is going to depend on SAF, and particularly because other options such as electricity or hydrogen are not mature and probably are not going to be mature ever for long-haul distances. And finally, and this is a very positive note I want to share, this is a fantastic, hello? Yeah. This is a fantastic investment opportunity. I mean, if you look at only from a European perspective and you do a back of the envelope calculation, we have a mandate called Refuel EU. And that means that 2% SAF is going to be blended by 2025, 6% by 2030, and 70% by 2025. And if you translate that in terms of investments, that means more or less 150 SAF refineries. And that represents an investment of $250 billion, more or less, up to 2050. And that's just for Europe. So that's the challenge, but that's the opportunity. With me here, Julien, please, if you want to introduce yourself. And we're going to move on with some slides. I'm very interested, and you are very interested to hear about Airbus's vision on the topic. So we're going to go through a number of slides, then from DLR and the colleagues here, and then we'll go to a round of questions. Can you put the other presentation, please?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the people still in the room at this late time. We are the last presentation of the day, hopefully not the least interesting. And I'm gonna present you a bit Airbus activities in Efuels and hydrogen. Julien Lehal, I'm investment director working in group strategy, M&A of Airbus. And I'm gonna present you our investments that are driven by our group strategy. Airbus, we are a European company, so European roots with global reach. We are as well very active in Morocco. We sympathize very much with the Moroccan people with the earthquake, and we feel very touched actually about what has happened. We have 3 production sites in Morocco, in Tangier, Rabat, and Casablanca. That's not always known, but in almost every Airbus aircraft, there are parts that are made in Morocco. I will skip that slide very quickly. It's a global views of where the regulation is driving the markets. Europe is very ahead, which, as I put with the flag, is a great opportunity as a neighbor market for Morocco. But I understand from the day-to-day, it's not if, it's more that when Morocco will become a green hydrogen and a P2X producer. Different by sustainable aviation fuel, actually we can put a S at the end, not just one single type of SAF. We all aware about biofuels, but there are as well other technologies like gasification, alcohol to jet, and finally power to liquid. There are as well different type of power to liquids, those that produce from Fischer Tropsch, a technology that exists for over 100 years. But we're also at Airbus very curious about the development of methanol to jet. We have actually, as an aircraft maker, it's unusual to have an energy roadmap. So at Group Strategy, we've defined different axes where we want to work, moving from biomass feedstock, but very quickly moving up to hydrogen. Synthetic fuel highlighted here, extremely interesting to us, being an end product, a drop-in product for the current fleet of aircraft of today. And the great interest for us is that they're produced from hydrogen. At Airbus, we have the specificity that we are working on a research and technology program one day, probably in around 12 years horizon, to produce hydrogen-fueled aircraft. So by scaling up the hydrogen economy via e-fuel, for us, it's a great first step to reach a hydrogen-based economy that will pave the way for an hydrogen fuel aircraft in the 2030s. Of course, many times we say that the best SAF or the best fuel is the one you don't consume. So as an aircraft manufacturer, our duty is always to design and build the most efficient aircraft. Fuel tend to represent over 30% of the expense of an airline. And so if we want to scale up the fuel industry, we need as well to work on building or designing the most fuel efficient aircraft. And so as e-fuel will be more expensive than fossil fuel of today, by reducing the consumption of aircraft, we help as well the airline to cut the cost on this and to gradually increase the share of synthetic fuels into their blend with fossil. SAF is not something new to Airbus. Our journey started actually around 2008, 2009, where we started research and technology on biofuels. And so we have over 15 years of experience to test and certify. Actually, it's a big part of our job to work with energy companies and to make demo flights. That can be on aircraft, as in the picture, but as well helicopters. Airbus is a leading helicopter manufacturer in the world, so it helps for e-fuels with small batch produce to make those demo flights. Power to liquid, as I say, one pathway, lower TRL, but very interesting for the MENA region where biomass feedstock is limited. So we see a great potential, including for Morocco. As I said, our journey started a while ago. We design aircraft, we test them. So we work with our friends of DLR on different programs like the A320 family, A350, A380. And one of our jobs, as we expect energy companies to scale up the fuel production, we as well want to increase the certification for aircraft, where today a lot of type of SAF are certified up to 50% of blend in aircraft. And so our ambition, and we are working very hard on that, to certify all our aircraft to have the capability to fly with 100% aircraft by 2030 commercially. Because as you see on the picture here, this has been already proven by 2021. Several of our aircraft have been flying with 100%. I'll leave the floor and to my colleagues, to my friends here, but also to show you that beyond aerospace, we are walking the talk by investing as well a bit outside our core sector in aerospace. We are a strategic investor in the largest hydrogen fund in the world, HY24. We have set up a $200 million fund in Australia to catalyze a SAF industry in the country, which did not exist to date. And finally, we have other venture capital investment as well as partnership with very large companies like Mazda from Abu Dhabi, or smaller companies, startups like DG Fuels in the US. I will leave it here, maybe just finishing on hydrogen. Hydrogen, as I said, is very interesting as a feedstock for power to liquid. And we also have this program that you might have been aware of, which is our strategy by 2035. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julien. It's really impressive, the track record, and the best is to come in terms of what Airbus is doing in terms of decarbonization. So our next speaker is Dr. Jürgen Kern from DLR, and it's a great transition. You can hide it.
Merci beaucoup, Patrick. It's a pleasure and honor to be here in Morocco. I would like to present you some of our research topics in the field of aviation fuel, sustainable fuels for aviation. Could you please stop? Oh, it's already running. Excellent. Just some words about DLR. DLR is one of Germany's largest research organizations. We have over 10,000 people, more than 5,700 researchers. Most of them are working in the field of aviation and aeronautics. We have a lot of researchers also in other topics, transportation. I'm personally from the branch of energy. And we already have people working in project management agencies of DLR. So in the field, in the branch, no, okay. In the branch of energy, we have Solar Research Institute, Wind Energy Research Institute. A lot of people are working with storage systems, and I will later present some of the results of people in the combustion and gas turbine technologies. And I'm personally working as a cross-cutting technology in the energy systems analysis. So we are analyzing somehow agnostic all the technologies together for the benefits of an energy system like Morocco or other countries. When you look at the CO2 emissions today, we have about 2 to 3% of CO2 emissions in the whole global system. But this is only the CO2. Together with this, we have also soot in the atmosphere, and we have also vapor in the atmosphere. You know, the contrails, and they also give some additional impact on the global warming. So together with these effects, we assume about 7 to 8% coming from aviation, and this is quite an amount. And our aim is to reduce these emissions to a lower level. But of course, aviation will rise. Maybe in Germany, maybe in Europe, we can limit aviation to a certain amount, but especially in other countries, in Far East, Middle East, in Africa, the capacity of aviation will rise in the next years in this case. The question is how to solve these problems with the emissions. So this is an old curve. I choose this one because you can see the past, the present, and the future. So we are on the way up in emissions, and we should go down because we have agreed on climate reduction in all sectors. And the question is how to reduce emissions. The solution, of course, will be in efficiency, in technology. So every new aircraft which is constructed today is more efficient than the generation before. This is a big gain of efficiency, but this is not enough. We need more reduction of emissions, and we need more radical new technologies, and we need aviation fuel, sustainable aviation fuels. This is the only thing to reduce emissions from the aviation sector. We have a lot of initiatives, German initiatives, European initiatives, global ones. Also in Morocco, there are several announcements and starting up projects which are very promising. So the whole world is working in reduction of CO2 emissions from aviation. This is a result of a study we have made together with several institutes about new aircraft concepts. And as you can see, highlighted by the red box, that synthetic kerosene plays a huge role in future concepts, aircraft concepts, especially when it goes to long distance flights. There might be solutions with electric flights on short term, especially when it comes to short distances. But when you go to international, intercontinental flight, you need an energy carrier that is powerful and lightweighted. So in general, there are only two options. One is hydrogen, and the other one is synthetic kerosene. Hydrogen needs a completely new infrastructure. So you need new aircrafts you need new infrastructure on the ground with synthetic fuels. You can continue the way with modifications we are already on with the fossil fuels. So I'd like to resume with 3 statements. Climate change is a global challenge. We can only solve it globally. So we have to work together in all countries. And aviation is, of course, at crossroads. We need radical changes, and there will be radical changes in technology, in prices, in applications. And of course, international key is the major solution and the key for reducing CO2 emissions in aviation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jürgen. Next speaker is Dr. Valentin Batteiger. I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. Batteiger in French, from Bauhaus Luftfahrt. Please, Valentin, the floor is yours.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Valentin Batteiger, but this last name has a French background, so pronunciation has changed over time. I'm from Bauhaus Luftfahrt. Bauhaus Luftfahrt is an aviation think tank in Germany. Airbus is a member of Bauhaus Luftfahrt. DLR is a member of Bauhaus Luftfahrt. Also MTU Aero Engines, Liebherr Aerospace, IABG, and the Bavarian state. And we as a think tank, we try to look holistically at the future of civil aviation. And I will show you some of our products. These are aircraft concepts from our engineering team. We broadly agree with what has said before. Battery electric aircraft, usually then in hybrid mode, are only feasible for very short distances. So certainly for the longer distances where the bulk part of jet fuel is burned today, we need liquid fuels. And liquid fuels could be liquid hydrogen in the future, but distance future. So we don't talk about 2030, we talk about 2035 at the earliest. And when we talk about long range, where in principle maybe there might be a technical feasibility, then we certainly talk about 2040 or much later until we will be there. And to achieve the targets, becoming climate neutral by mid-century, we see that we mainly need synthetic kerosenes that we can use as a substitute to the jet fuels that we have today. So this is the main path to go until mid-century for climate neutral aviation. On this slide, we show you one of our main products. It's a white paper that we did in the PTX world. So it's a white paper about power to liquid, different aspects. And what one can say is that the clear motivation to move towards power to liquids is sustainability at scale. So we heard it before that in the shipping panel, the limitation of the biofuels that we use today is the main motivation to look into other pathways, and then also to look into the power-based pathways based on solar and wind, because they are much more area efficient. We also heard today they use much less water, which is very important for water-stressed regions like here in Morocco, and they can also be quite low carbon if there are 2 ingredients. One is renewable electricity and also a sustainable carbon source. This is the second ingredient that is very important there. Okay, now the main challenge for power to liquid fuels is the cost, and here you see how we want to often show it. It's on the right axis, it's production cost estimates. On the upper axis, you see CO2 emissions. Up there, the conventional fuel, and we are significantly more expensive than the conventional fuel prices that we see today, and we are also more expensive than some of the biofuels options that we had. But these biofuel options, usually you cannot scale as good. So if we really want to go towards decarbonization of aviation, very likely we will need these e-fuels. And this is then also the way and the motivation to look into hydrogen is then when we accept that we will need a synthetic fuel in the future, then of course hydrogen can be produced with less effort and also without the need for a CO2 source. This is why the interest is so great at the moment in these fuel pathways. Last slide from my side is this one. It's a little bit about the policies that we have, policies that aim at an initial scale up of power to liquid fuels in Germany and also now more recently in Europe. There is national PTL quota in Germany. So this starts in 2026 with 0.5% growth, 2030 to 2%. This just means that whoever sells jet fuel in Germany needs to ensure that these quota are coming from PTL fuels, or they need to pay a penalty. We call it Penale in Germany. Now, Refuel EU Aviation is through the European Parliament. It will start at 1.2% in 2030, and then it will grow significantly over the next decades. Okay, thank you. And I give over to Frank Mischler.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Valentina. And last but not least, we're going to hear from Frank Mischler, who runs a very interesting initiative called Power to X Hub from the GIZ. And I asked Frank to be last because we wanted to land on something concrete. And the good news is that Frank and his team are working on a concrete SAF project in Morocco, and he's going to share some good initiatives and news in Morocco. Please, Frank.
Yes, let's see. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Frank Mischler, my name. I'm one of the 3 directors of the PTX Hub, which is do tank. So we help emerging countries and developing nations of this world who have the potential to produce hydrogen to find their specific niche in this evolving market. And we currently work with 13 countries worldwide, and Morocco is our prime partner. The biggest team that we have is here in Morocco. Oh, where I have to point it? Maybe I have to stand here. Yeah, I have to stand here. Okay, I will go through these slides very, very quickly because the other speakers already talked about the huge pull of SAF. And from a European perspective, the Refuel Aviation may give us the biggest impulse because it makes the use of SAF obligatory with a sub-target for PTL SAF, which is of our interest. Well, we saw a similar slide a moment ago. There are different SAFs, and the most economic at the moment is the Heifer route, which also Jürgen talked about. And you see over the coming years, alcohol to jet coming in. But in the long haul, we need something else because sustainable aviation fuel based on energy plants. I don't know. Neste, the biggest producer, says 10% of world production. That's the maximum. I think then we get into competition with other uses for our land and with food and agriculture. So the better use, I think, of energy plants would be not to use them as for their energy content, but for their carbon content. Once we take coal and gas and oil out of the equation worldwide, and we have to do that, the limiting factor will be our carbon source. So sustainable carbon will be a good that we all need in the coming future. So let's use the energy plants for the carbon content and use the energy from renewable energy. Okay, and with this we have a specific challenge, because if you look at the production with Fischer-Tropsch that gives us PTL SAF, that's currently run with a huge carbon source like a coal mine, these plants are super large, but a sustainable carbon, think of forest residues or agriculture residues, comes very local, very decentralized, and very small in volume. So our plants have to be smaller in volume as well. And we are thinking that a modular approach, small plants at the vicinity of demand centers, in that case, an airport, that would be the world that we are looking in future. Sorry for giving you. So, and finally, all the speakers before, they talked a lot about the big challenge that we need to encounter. And certainly this is an emerging market, and in the comparison with HEFA, but moreover with fossil-based kerosene, there's no chance. It's not bankable. It's not economic PTL SAF. But you have to start. You have to learn the technology. You have to start with small plants and then grow. So our team here, together with KfW and Iresen, is committed to building a power-to-liquid plant. There's still discussion whether it will be kerosene, whether it will be methanol. We are discussing that in the coming months, and I hope we'll be able to announce it latest at the end of the year or beginning of the next year, and then in the next 3 years, build it. It shall be here next to the ammonia plant that was talked about much at the beginning of this wonderful conference in the morning. That's in a nutshell what we do. Other than that, we are very much into training and studies as a partner of ICAO and also of DRL and Bauhaus Luftfahrt. We're working very closely together to make this a reality. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Frank. I have good news. I promise this was the last slide today, so no more slides. Good. Let's go through a number of questions. So we've looked at things from an helicopter standpoint. All this is nice, but we know that there are challenges. Valentin, from your perspective, what are the key technical and logistic challenges behind all this in terms of implementing e-fuels for aviation? And most importantly, how do you think we could overcome them at large scale?
Yeah, as I said before, the main challenge is cost. So somehow we need to bridge this cost gap that we have from the current fuels to the e-fuels, and typical carbon pricing is not enough. So we need dedicated schemes, and this has been identified by the policies, understood, and this is why we see, for instance, the sub-quota that we now have at the moment. So I believe there is no real technical challenge associated with any of the subsystems along the chain, but the challenge is to get a full plant into operation at a spot in the time frame that we need at the moment. So especially for the German quota, which set in 2026, there's not much time left to develop these projects. But I believe from a technical perspective, it can be done. And in the more long term, it's carbon supply. Direct air capture technology is something which is less mature than the other building blocks. And it's a big question mark at the moment, whether it will be commercially viable someday, yes or no.
Thank you very much, Valentin. Let's talk about finance. Julien, my numbers, and you might challenge them, tell me that more or less today, fossil jet fuel is between $700 and $900 a ton. FI is about 1,800 to 2,000, and then methanol to jet somewhere around $2,000 and $3,000 a ton, and possibly Fisher Trap related stuff behind $5,000 a ton. So that's the reality of today. how do we, as an industry, can ensure a smooth transition without compromising on the financial performance of the firm?
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. I think the ranges you gave are fairly accurate for EFA. I think we're getting to have market data thanks to index providers. I think we're getting more and more data on that, and effectively it's more expensive, but the premium is fairly reasonable. For Efuels, actually, I've seen quite many projects at even a pricing point above to what you mentioned. The issue with power to liquids is that we see only demo projects, very small scale. So these do not reflect the price that you could get from commercial size plants. So again, like I said, think that fuel costs are around 30+% of airline costs. If you multiply the fuel cost by 2, 3, 4, 5, you see that it doesn't fit the business model of airlines. So the mandate in Europe works fine because you have a very small percentage point integrating SAF gradually into the system. And then you will reach by 2050 in Europe up to 70% of SAF, half of which will be e-fuel. So that gives quite a long time for the industry to ramp up. But effectively, the cost is a huge issue. So that's why we need to start small. And then as the industry will ramp up, the energy sector will build large plants. Expect that with size, with scaling up, the cost will decrease. And so the incorporation in aircraft will increase following the mandate.
Thank you very much, Julian. Maybe Jürgen, your perspective in terms of achieving carbon neutrality. Efuels in the path of achieving carbon neutrality in the long term, what do you think they will play? What's your perspective on that? Is carbon negativity a dream? Is it realistic? For me, DLR stands out of the crowd in terms of scenario analysis, long-term scenario analysis. This is your, 3 minutes moment of glory to show us that I'm right.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's about carbon reduction. So if you bring fuels to the atmosphere, you always bring also water to the atmosphere. So even if you fly with hydrogen, pure hydrogen, you will have as a product somewhere in high altitude water vapor. That means contrails. You will never get rid of it except if you're flying with batteries and electric flight. But as I've mentioned before, this is limited to short distance, maybe medium distance flights, but not for intercontinental flights. So you will always have vapor in atmosphere, even if you burn hydrogen or if you burn Fischer-Tropsch, PTL, SAF. But you will reduce a lot of emissions when you go to very pure sustainable aviation fuel. So today, with the fossil fuels, you have a lot of aromats, you have a lot of soot, and all these can be reduced. And even the CO2 could be captured by direct air capture, for example, or by plants. And this can be a cycle. But in the end, you will always bring water to the atmosphere, so you will always have a climate impact. But this can be reduced dramatically. So especially the DLR, we have 2 institutes, one of combustion technology, the other one of atmospheric measurements. We own specific aircrafts which can fly behind commercial aircrafts in a distance of 200 meters in high altitude, in any altitude, and measure these emissions. And this is very important because when you measure, you can adjust your models. Models are always interesting, but the reality sometimes is different. So measuring emissions on flight in high altitude, in any altitude, is important. And therefore, I'm very sure that we can dramatically reduce emissions in aviation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jürgen. So there is a reason for hope. Frank, governments and regulators, they have a role to play. The question is what role? How can they incentivize? How can they support the infrastructure build-up to make this, let's say, faster, stronger at an international level? What role should they play?
Well, I see the European Union with they play a very nice role because they put both an industry target as making the product fossil kerosene more and more expensive with our carbon price. Other countries follow suit. So there is currently a law in the parliament or council in Brazil that does something very similar and demands a reduction of carbon emissions of the airlines. So if we are in a situation where this comparison that we have, SAF towards kerosene, fossil-based kerosene, it's not really correct because we cannot compare it economically because the old fossil kerosene destroys our planet. So it's a false comparison. So we need to go down towards PTL SAF. And I think if we help the private companies to get over this this first hurdle, where we then get into bigger plants and lower prices, then we'll get this this growth rates that we need. So I think right now, without the support of governments in the first plants, this market will have huge difficulties. So I'm super happy to see the European Investment Bank, KfW, others to come in and to finance, and some brave private sectors like Ineratec or HDL and others, they see the great value of coming in as pioneers, knowing that they won't break even maybe with the first project, but in the long term, what they learn is so valuable. So we have a couple of years in front of us where we need governments to play a very decisive, strong role, which means a lot of money and facilitating with the right policies. And then I hope that private sector and investors can take over.
Thank you so much, Frank. Very clear. Now, there's a business textbook which says the title is Hope is Not a Strategy. I often use that with my teams. Julien, what do you think are the limitations and possible trade-offs in terms of relying on e-fuels to decarbonize the aviation sector? What is, realistic?
Okay, Wes, as an aerospace company, I think we try to play our role, as I said, by 2030, to make all our aircraft capable to uplift 100% of SAF. So that's far ahead of the 2050 target that the industry has. So despite that, SAF will probably be concentrated initially in a few places in the world, some aircraft will be able to take off with 100% SAF. So I think from a technical perspective, today many SAFs already, aircraft are capable to fly with 50%. So technically that's fine. I think now the limitation I see is on the supply side. I'm very excited at this conference to see top energy companies to have projects about power to liquid. Slightly concerned about the geographical spread. Some market intelligence. We see a lot of power to liquid projects, actually more than 80% being now in Europe. And we see a few projects in the US for SAF. There's also e-fuels in South America, etc. So we'd like to see more in the Middle East. I think Mazda in Abu Dhabi as a pilot project. Morocco has great potential. So I invite all developers push more for sustainable aviation fuel.
Thank you, Julien. As you might have heard last week, Total announced an auction to source 500,000 tons of low carbon hydrogen to feed in their refineries. Maybe this is something you should think about in your space. Now the surprise question to all of you. You've heard from the ministry this morning, a brilliant woman that opened the session. If you were to have 5 minutes with her tomorrow morning, what would be the 2 or 3 messages you'd like to give her to make a push in terms of e-fuels for aviation? Who wants to go first?
Thank you. Good question. I met her the day before. I would give her the recommendation to invest in long-term energy planning and strategy, because all we need is a long-term strategy for investment. So if the banks, if the industry will invest, they need an assurance what will happen in the next 5, 10, 20 years. They will not invest on an initiative of today. It's all about long-term guarantees, security of investment, and therefore you need a long-term strategy and plan.
No, this is wishing, okay? So I can say whatever I want.
We're in a small group here.
And
Is there someone from the ministry?
I think we are online.
Yes.
But,
so please take notes.
no. But Europe moved forward with refuel aviation. So it would be nice if other countries and other regions are following. And this would be my wish. I don't know in what way, but if what we have achieved in Europe now with refuel EU aviation would also be adapted in other countries and other regions in the world. And this is very important because with the higher fuel prices, I don't think that the airline industry is too concerned about higher fuel prices. They are concerned about price differences. This is where all the carbon leakage and so on arguments get in. So for us in Europe, these steep ramp up of the mandates, this will be difficult to politically survive if the other regions don't follow. And so this would be my wish.
Let me answer in a roundabout way. In Germany, there are 2 ministries that are very keen on e-fuels and SAF. The Ministry of Economic Affairs and the Ministry for Transport. And both have big working groups. The Transport Ministry, 2 weeks ago, the first e-fuels conference in Munich, and they invited everyone, the investors, the project developers, the technology providers, the academia, and so on and the forth. And one proposal was, okay, if you have all these know-how in the room, bundle it and go to 2-3 countries that have the potential to produce SAF and work with them very closely and ramp it up in this country and be very clear and focused. Don't spread out too thinly. Don't let everyone try their own thing, but do it together as a group and very focused. And the Germans should decide on that. And then the minister should pick up the phone and call her 2 minister friends in Germany and Berlin and ask, I volunteer Morocco to be one of those pilot countries.
Good. Julien, anything you want to add?
Yeah, no, very quick comments. I think the beauty of sustainable aviation, it's mixed both the energy and the aviation sector. I think we all know with this conference that Morocco has a fantastic potential in green hydrogen and renewables, but think as well about aviation. You have an excellent national airline. You have excellent airport infrastructure. How many of you have been surprised by the Marrakesh airport? If you fly around Europe, it's by far much better than many airports around Europe. So I think the next step for the ministry will be to have a demo flight out of one of the airports in Morocco, whether it's be Rabat, Casablanca, or Marrakesh. I think it will be a great testimony as well to the energy transition of the aviation sector and to highlight the fantastic quality of aviation infrastructure in the kingdom.
Thank you, Julien. Is there any question from the room before we all run for a drink? Let me just, summarize a few highlights. So what we've heard today is SAF is there. And SAF is there fail. Whether it's Efuels or other forms, we need it desperately in the aviation sector. The other good news is that a country like Morocco, which has terrific renewable energy assets, is a fantastic country where to eventually invest, because this is all about exporting massively renewable energy. If you think about it, exporting massively renewable electricity is very difficult, but with hydrogen, it's possible. And ESAF is a very nice product to help us decarbonize the aviation sector. With that, again, thank you. We are not that many, but I really, really appreciated the effort you made to stay with us this evening. So thank you. A round of applause for the people here.